So by some miracle, Klonoa is finally returning to a new generation. Last year I decided to try out both the PS1 and Wii remake of Klonoa 1. I was about to try Klonoa 2, but then suddenly the announcement of the remaster showed up, and I decided to hold off until the remasters come out. And also I'm having some technical issues for the PS2 emulator. So I can't wait to try out Klonoa 2, because I've heard that's the best game in the series. So while I wait for the remakes, I decided to binge through the Klonoa Portable games, because I've heard a lot of good things about these games and it caught my interest. But anyway, so as I was playing through all the games, I decided why not and try and make a video on all of the Portable games. And with that all the way, let's get started. So after the release of Klonoa Door to Phantomile, Namco decided to create a Klonoa game for the Portable. And it's not for the Game Boy, but the WonderSwan. Created by Namco's future bride, the WonderSwan was a device that was supposed to compete with the Game Boy. This thing was only released in Japan, which, fun fact, was also made by the designer of the Game Boy itself. But anyway, so for Klonoa for PS1, it was a 2.5D game, so when you convert it to a portable, it's pretty much a 2D game. The only difference is that Klonoa can't shoot from the front and back. But anyway, so the story is that Klonoa and Hupo finds themselves in a mysterious museum. This is where when they realize that the moon has been shattered into fragments, and the only way to get the fragments back is to jump into paintings. And with that, Klonoa and Hupo are off to a new adventure. So yeah, as I said before, this is just a simple side-scroller. But they did add a few new things compared to Door to Phantomile. So in order to complete a level, you must find these 3 fragments to progress. And to do so, you need to explore the areas. And I've gotta say, for a simple 8-bit handheld device, it looks pretty alright. I also like how they keep the voice clips for Klonoa. No matter how weak the console is, you'll still hear that wahoo and glorious 8-bit crunch. But anyway, so since this was on the WonderSwan, there is one big gimmick to this game that's unique, which is that the game rotates the camera. For some reason, this kind of makes me think of something like a mobile game, and I'm not talking about something like iOS or Android, I mean the really old mobile games. But anyway, if you're a fan of Klonoa, I recommend trying this game out. So a few years later, when the Game Boy Advance was relevant, Namco decided to make some Klonoa games for the console. And the first one being Klonoa Empire of Dreams. So the game starts with Klonoa and Hupo taking a nap during the evening. Suddenly, these guards showed up at their door saying that they are under arrest, because they committed the crime of dreaming. Yes, dreaming. So the Emperor of this world declares dreaming illegal because he finds it completely useless. He will spare Klonoa unless he's able to fight 5 monsters throughout the land. And so it's up for Klonoa and Hupo to go off and fight monsters to save their lives. Now, I gotta say one thing real quick I'm a bit confused on. So in Klonoa 1, as he restores Phantomile, he was sent off to a different world because he doesn't belong there. Meaning he was separated by his friend. But in this game, they're just together, like nothing really happens. And I know it's later because Klonoa is using his older design. But anyway, that doesn't matter right now. So in this game, Klonoa and Hupo travels throughout the different worlds trying to save people. Unfortunately, the first world they landed in, and Klonoa is immediately getting punched in the face consistently. Poor little fella. But anyway, so when you start the gameplay is very like Moonlight Museum. You do several puzzles around the world, try to collect these items, and then get to the goal. Overall, it's pretty much like Moonlight Museum, but a bit more refined. For one, the visual of this game looks really good for the Game Boy Advance, which is also nice considering that this game doesn't fall into those trappings sometimes where the game looks overly saturated. Mostly because the Game Boy Advance doesn't have a backlight. Anywho, so this game is divided between 5 worlds, and each world has a distinct level design. But what's unique in this game is that each level is divided into different rooms, and the puzzling of this game is a lot more complicated compared to Klonoa 1. They have a reset function so you can redo the area. So in some ways, it's kind of like having a level inside of a level. And finally, we have these new vehicle sections. In certain areas of the world, Klonoa will ride a board, and all you have to do is just try to get as many collectibles as you can. Overall, I find these areas pretty good. They give this game a bit more variety. And finally, we have these bosses, and honestly, they are really cool. In the normal levels, the camera usually sticks to Klonoa a lot, but in these, it constantly zooms both in and out. And so when you're trying to fight the boss, it gives it a grander scale compared to regular levels. Overall, I found Klonoa Empire Dreams a really good GBA game, and I recommend trying it out if you're a fan of Klonoa. You can get it on the eShop. I recommend trying to do it before it closes. Thanks, Nintendo. So after the release of Klonoa Empire Dreams, a follow-up called Klonoa 2 Dream Champ Tournament released. So while Empire Dreams was heavily based on Door to Phantomile, Dream Champ Champion is based on Lunateus Vale, as several of the characters that made their debut in that game make an appearance in here, including characters that appear in Empire Dreams as well. But anyways, so the story of this game is that Klonoa receives a letter that he was invited to a tournament. And before he thought of anything, the letter then teleports him to the tournament. But not just him, but most of his friends and foes throughout the series. And this is when we get introduced to Garland, who is the host of the tournament. He challenges Klonoa and co. to face off in a tournament to see who can win. This game also introduces to a new character named Guns, who is supposed to be Klonoa's rival for the series. I really like the story. It's just a really fun, simple tournament story. And as for the gameplay, it's pretty much like Empire Dreams, but a lot more polished. For one, I really love the menus and UI in this game. It looks very clean, especially when you're trying to look at this on an old Game Boy Advance. It honestly makes me think of Bowser's Inside Story with its round aesthetics. And overall, this game just feels a lot more lively compared to Empire Dreams, with my favorite area of the game easily being the train section. I just like how the time of day changes every time you go through a level. And if you want more replayability, there's now a ranking system in this game. This game will rank you depending on how good you play this game, how many collectibles you get, and how many lives you have. And if you complete every level, you'll earn a special artwork for the game. And also returning from Empire of Dreams are the vehicle sections. But instead of it being a side-scroller, you're going to be driving in front of the camera. And honestly, I really like these sections a lot more. Flashing lights to the side, because you do a lot more things than just go left and right. Like there's some do or die situations where you need to use Klonoa's Flutter. And finally, we have the bosses in this game. So instead of trying to fight the boss, you're trying to race him to the finish line. And these can be really challenging. I was at the edge of my seat with that Egyptian level. And honestly, between both Empire Dreams and Dream Champ Tournament, I honestly prefer Dream Champ Tournament. It pretty much refined a lot of aspects of Empire Dreams. And honestly, for a game like this, it is perfect for a simple pick up and play. So I recommend trying to get this game as well before the eShop goes. So the final game we have here is Klonoa Heroes. This game was a Japanese exclusive RPG spin-off of the Klonoa series. Unfortunately, this game was never re-released in any other countries, meaning it's probably going to be hard to get through this game due to a language barrier, because unlike something like Moonlight Museum where you're probably going to be missing part of the story due to a language barrier, but overall gameplay-wise, it won't be affected that much. But with something like an RPG, you're going to need menus to understand what to do. However, 20 years later, fans were finally able to experience this due to a fan-made translation. So special thanks to people who were able to work on this English patch. Because of this game is a lot more accessible now to people who want to get into this game. But since this patch came out recently, meaning that more people are going to be playing this for the first time, I'm just going to be talking about the first section I played. So, Klonoa Heroes takes place in an alternate universe, because characters that Klonoa met throughout his adventures are acted like his childhood friends. And so in this universe, one of Klonoa's friends named Lolo is leaving the town so she could become a priest. And so Klonoa decides to give Lolo a parting ways gift. But his ideas fell short once monsters suddenly started attacking the town. And so Klonoa tries to set off to fight the monsters. This game is very unique compared to other Game Boy Advance games I've played, because this is a real-time RPG. Because unlike something like Mario and Luigi where Mario goes into a turn-based battle, Klonoa attacks the enemies in real time. Klonoa is still wielding his trademark Grin Wing, but instead of the other games where you can grab enemies, the wind bullets this time can damage enemies depending on the color of the wind bullets. Klonoa can eventually transform his ring into a freaking sword. And I've gotta say, it is really fun attacking enemies with this sword. And it's really satisfying to defeat a giant enemy. Another thing I really like about this game is the presentation. Even though the cutscenes are limited to these icons, they still have a lot of personalities. I like how the icons will squash and stretch depending on the dialogue. I recommend trying this out if you're curious. This is definitely a game I'm going to be continue playing after this. And so, that was the library for Klonoa. And I've got to say, Klonoa had a really healthy lineup on the Game Boy Advance. I had a lot of fun playing the 2 Klonoa games on the GBA. If you're curious on those 2 games, you can get it on the Wii U eShop. However, since that shop is closing next year, I recommend trying to get it as soon as possible. But anyway, so I only have a few more Klonoa games left to talk about. I said this before, but I haven't played Klonoa 2 yet. I'm waiting for the remaster to get released on Switch, which is something I'm really looking forward to because I've heard that's the best game in the series. But anyway, so that'll do for today, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye!